Hello, fourth grade champions. Today we're going to begin reading Out of My Shell, a book that I hope you have in your Invest for Success bags. I'm going to be reading this book aloud, and you may follow along in your book or listen or read to yourself and kind of catch up each day. We're going to read maybe 6 or 7 pages today, and then we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. So I hope you enjoy this book, Out of My Shell by Jenny Goebel. Tell by the picture on the front, I think you know what this is about. And I will just read you a little bit from the back cover to pique your interest. 12-year-old Olivia normally spends all year looking forward to her family's summer vacation in Florida, but not this year. Not when her parents have recently separated and her father has to stay behind in Colorado. Olivia doesn't know what she'll do all summer without him. They've always been a pair, and she's never felt the same bond with her mother or younger sister. So Olivia plans to spend the summer lying low and trying to ignore the hurt gnawing at her heart. But when she learns that the local sea turtle population is in serious risk of dying off because of her neighbor's poorly designed inn, she knows she has to do something. She can't just watch the beautiful creatures suffer. Yet her chances of helping the turtles are slim, and she can't handle any more heartbreak. Will Olivia turn her back on her favorite animal to avoid the pain? Or will she find the courage to stand up for the turtles and maybe heal herself in the process? Sea turtles are reptiles and must rise to the surface to breathe. However, a sea turtle can hold its breath and remain underwater for several hours at a time. My little sister Lainey was hogging the armrest. She was in the middle seat between Mom and me. Lifting herself with her hands, she tucked her knees to her chest and swung back and forth in the small space between rows. She was practically performing gymnastics on the airplane. She was excited for our trip, genuinely and wholeheartedly excited. As badly as I wanted to be too, I couldn't bring myself to feel even a shimmer of anticipation. When the flight attendant took my drink order a few minutes later, I could hear myself saying, "Apple juice?" and "Thank you." But what I was thinking was, "You've got to keep it together, Liv." Our family was -1, and even though Lainey was oblivious, bouncing in her seat and bursting with giggles, excuse me, I was on the verge of falling apart. I couldn't stop glancing at the open seat across the aisle, the place where Dad should have been sitting. Mom was in rough shape too. Her fingers drummed the armrest almost the entire flight. She got even more frazzled after the plane landed in Tampa and she had to rent a car. Her legs moved restlessly as she stood in line, creating little ripples in her long, flowery skirt. I wished I could help, but I also knew the rental car company would never turn keys over to me. Dad had always been the one to step up to the counter. Mom usually corralled our luggage and squeezed droplets of hand sanitizer into Lainey's and my hands, even though we'd already washed them in the airport bathroom. This time, Mom skipped the hand sanitizer and shot me a pleading look as the woman behind the counter took her credit card. I followed Mom's line of sight to where my sister was standing, hovering really over a stranger's wheeled bag. Lainey gave the luggage a slight shove, testing its unrestricted movement. "Lainey," I cautioned, and lunged for her arm. I wasn't quick enough. My fingers snatched empty air as she belly flopped onto the bag. "Whee!" she cried, rolling past the Enterprise rent-a-car sign and bowling right into a group of tourists. There were a few yelps, some groans, 2 pairs of sunglasses and a beach hat went flying. Thankfully, Mom was too distracted by the woman at the counter to notice. Unable to look any of Laney's victims in the eye, I retrieved my sister and rolled the luggage back to its rightful owner. Then I held her hand until Mom was finished. I couldn't blame Laney entirely, even though it rubbed me the wrong way. I understood how she could act so carefree. Laney was half my age. The sleight of hand trick Mom was pulling might have worked on me, too, when I was 6. Look away from our family's ruin and focus on the trip in Florida. It's a sunshine state. Sadness is an impossibility. Forget that our lives are in pieces. We're going back to the beach. Right. Getting from Tampa to Anna Maria Island required a trip over the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. As Mom drove up the steeply rising arch, Laney sucked in her breath, then let out a noise that was halfway between a song and a sigh. The road appeared as though it paved the way to blue sky and cotton ball clouds. The bright yellow stabilizing cables dazzled like rays of light outside the car windows. The dreamy expression on Laney's face told me that she'd already ridden the bridge through the clouds and that her thoughts were somewhere high above the Earth's atmosphere. Even Mom's face brightened for a breezy second at the view. I'll admit, there was a tug at the corners of my lips too, but it wasn't strong enough to counter the weight in my stomach. It might have been from fear. The bridge was super high. Mostly, though, I think it came from missing Daddy already. I missed the history lesson he always gave me as we drove over the bridge. He called them Forrester family fabulous facts, although I might have been the only Forrester in the family to enjoy them. As we reached the highest point, I could practically hear his annual lecture playing in my head. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge is the longest cable-stayed concrete bridge in the world, girls. Not the first bridge to span the Tampa Bay, though. The first bridge meant disaster. Disaster with a capital D. In 1980, a freighter plowed into it during a thunderstorm. More than 1,000 feet of the bridge plummeted into the bay, killing motorists and passengers. Disaster. That was exactly what this vacation would be without Dad. Nothing close to the magnitude of a bridge collapsing, of course, but disaster nonetheless. Dad made everything more interesting. At his office at the university, he had an Albert Einstein quote hanging above his desk. Once you stop learning, you start dying. He said he wanted to make sure that never happened to Laney and me. Some things he just knew, and some facts he looked up on the spot. Like when we saw a pod of dolphins, he pulled up info on his phone about their migration patterns. And when he saw a sea turtle, he pulled up images. Okay, Olivia Forrester, he'd say, as if I were a contestant on a game show. Name that species, loggerhead, green sea turtle, or hawksbill. I couldn't imagine an entire summer without his quizzes and Forrester Family Fabulous Facts. Instead of coming with us this year, he'd be teaching history classes to college students. I never imagined I'd be jealous of anyone going to summer school. Then there was Dad's new apartment, one couch, a single chair in the kitchen, and no TV yet. I imagined him coming home to it all quiet and empty after a day of teaching. He had to be sad and lonely. Grandma and Grandpa were waiting outside their beach house as we pulled into the driveway an hour later. Beads of sweat dotted the patch of wrinkled skin above Grandpa's eyeglasses, and Grandma was fanning herself with a folded piece of paper. Every June, my mom's parents greet us in front of their turquoise-colored home, a soaring 3-story barrier between us and the beach. When we exited the car, they enveloped us in hugs and a cloud of Grandma's overly sweet perfume. They said what they always say, "Oh my word, how you girls have grown." There were slight differences, though, things Laney didn't pick up on, but I did. My grandparents held Mom a tad tighter and a fraction of a minute longer than usual. For the first time ever, Grandma didn't comment on how much I resemble my father. "Grandma, Grandpa," Laney said. She tugged our grandmother out of her embrace with Mom by the back of her sleeveless blouse. "Look." Laney pointed to the pink hole in her bottom gum, and our grandparents peered in as if they'd uncovered the eighth wonder of the world. Everyone made a huge fuss over the lost tooth while ignoring the fact that Dad wasn't there. I turned away from the group, unable to feign interest in my sister's dental development, and saw Aiden standing on the front lawn of the Beachcomber Inn next door. He was taller than last summer, and his hair was different, longer. He wore new glasses. As good as it was to see my summer friend, my legs felt wobbly as I walked toward him. He had to have noticed my dad was missing, and I dreaded explaining why. I didn't know what to do with my hands, so I waved quickly, then shoved them into my pockets. Aiden's grandfather was the caretaker at the inn, and Aiden had been visiting since we were both in diapers. He had always been quiet yet playful. He inserted funny faces into conversations instead of words. He cracked jokes after barely saying anything for hours. 1,000 times he'd snuck up on me just to give me a fright. I thought our friendship might be the one normal thing left about Florida. I stuck my tongue out, trying to initiate our usual batter, and immediately regretted it. Instead of twisting his features around and mimicking me like I expected, he tipped his head questioningly. He knew me well enough to know something was wrong. We're going to stop there for today, and we'll pick up there, page 7, tomorrow. In the middle of the page, the next sentence is, I couldn't escape Dad's absence. Hope you've enjoyed the first few pages of this book, and I look forward to sharing more with you tomorrow.